folks. It is Hobby Talk with PSA Canada, September 15th, 2022. I'm Carlos, and with me is the owner and controller, overlord, if you will, of PSA Canada, Brad Harlan. See, I gave you a new title, Brad.
There you go. I like it.
There you go. You gotta embrace it though. You gotta give the proper overlord vibes. I'll workshop it with you. We'll figure it out.
That's good.
Sounds good. So thank you all for joining us. I know we're in the second Thursday night football game of the season. I'm excited too, but I got my streaming package, so I can always go in and watch the game. I'll be checking it out for sure. But already a little bit into it. Hobby Cop kind of makes reference to it. So first comment of the night, the Hobby Cop, football and hobby talk. Can't ask for more. Exactly. Thank you very much. Glad that we're able to participate in part of your entertainment for the evening. So the usual thing will be in the show. We do have a little bit of a topic we're going to talk through a little bit, but it is kind of open to any questions you might have. Same rules apply as usual. If you do have anything going on with PSA Canada and you do want your status, that will be available for you. So you can definitely ask that question, and we can try to provide you a little bit of information. For the most part, though, we're going to be kind of chatting a little bit open-ended, a couple of things going on in the hobby. It is open to a variety of different hobby topics as well, so we'll definitely get into that. I also want to say kind of thank you to the PSA Canada folks. I did get my submission in. We kind of showed off that one, so I've got the cards in hand. So that's going to be going in. And I recorded my PSA submission, basically my submission recap video for my own YouTube channel. So I'm going to have it in glorious 4K. Gotta have it in glorious 4K, Kitty Collectibles, aloha, absolutely. Good evening. Thank you for joining in. So we've talked about, we did the discussion the last couple of episodes touching on a little bit of some different pieces around the whole grading piece. And what it really comes down to is understanding when it makes sense and when it doesn't make sense. And we've touched on that topic a little bit here and there, but I want to touch on one other element of it as well. So good evening, Paul, and good evening, Senator. Good evening, Eric. Absolutely. Eric. So one of the things is we all know that, grading costs money. So regardless of what grader you use, this is money, and hopefully what you're getting out of it is some kind of value. Now, the value could be you're trying to add value to the card, obviously. Authenticating it maybe helps you sell it. Or you want it for your personal collection, but you want to be sure it's authentic. That has a value to you personally. But it's one of those things where, and we've talked about this before, you can submit these things at different levels. You could submit a $5 card at a $1,000 level. Like, PSA will take your money, but it might not be necessary. It might not be required. And that's where understanding why you're doing it is so important. And that's why we touch on that topic a fair bit. But one thing you also want to kind of bear in mind, and something we'll talk a little bit about tonight, is that even when you're figuring it out, and while I'm saying this, I'm also going to introduce, and I do recommend for those of you who are newer to this or check it out on replay or whatever, feel free to throw questions and comments in the comments section after the fact, because we do read them and it gives us information and things we can carry forward to the next episode. But one of the things I'll share with you is that the PSA Canada Instagram page is constantly updated, and it's ticking across the bottom of the screen there. And if you do go to it, you get information such as the new prices. So like we talked alluded to it last time, the new prices though are now in effect. So what I'll do is I'll show it. It's going to be a little bit small, but I'll read a couple of them for you, and then we'll talk a little bit about it for the benefit of the show as well. And I do see the first question there from ES, so we'll touch on it in 2 seconds. Hang on there. Okay, so this is right here from the updated pricing. So the new tier that's really there is now we've got bulk. So this is a $199 maximum value per item. There is a little bit of leeway, don't try to put a $5,000 card in there and try to sneak it in under the line. But within reason, there's a little bit of leeway there. $199 max value, 120-day estimated turnaround time. And in Canadian dollars right now, that's $33, which is pretty good. It's pretty solid. That's a bulk value rate, and it allows it. It is converted into Canadian dollars. So if you're stateside, right now the new value is 22 US. So you got to do conversion and then add in a little bit of the fact of some of the other stuff you're getting with it, duties and all that is included. You're going to find out what the total is, so you'll actually know what you're paying up front. So anything else you want to add here, Brad, other than we're adding these two new levels here?
Yeah, no, that was it. We adjusted a few other things as well. The estimated turnaround times have all came down. So we want it to be very clear with people as well. That's your turnaround time starts from when the cards are logged into PSA system. So it's not when we receive the cards, but we do ship every week now. So it depends on when you get them in, they get down there. So say if it takes 2 days to get down there, it takes them 3 to 4 days to enter them in the system. So it's about a week there, and then the turnaround times start after that fact. So, but if looking at all our orders coming back now and seeing which way they're going, economy and above now is really, really quick. So I feel like if you are going to submit cards and you want them back in 30, 40 days, then if you submit at the economy level, I feel like that's going to be that threshold now.
Mhm.
It's going to be as low. It's going to be right around 30 days. Now, an order could get stuck for multiple reasons, especially dual orders. We're having that issue right now. I mean, it's not bad when you consider the literally thousands of cards we submitted in June. We have just under, I think we have 190 cards to come back
Mhm.
right now. So we're almost at 100. We're like 99% of our June cards have been shipped and are back with us, and we've got them back to the customers. So that's good. Some of the holdups are reholders, economy crossovers. They all take a little bit of, I don't understand why yet. I've asked the question so I could understand it, but obviously they go in a different lane. They go somewhere else when you have a crossover. So
Absolutely. And kind of a funny little side story, because I did mention off the top that I got my submission back. But the thing is, and we did the showcase here where we showed off the submission. But it was funny, the reason why I shot an email over, hey, so I know you guys have the card, so invoice me. Turned out they had my email wrong. They were missing a character. So I had an invoice, so I actually could have had it a little bit sooner. But as soon as we got that settled in, figured out, paid, and then boom, one day, and I got my stuff.
yeah, and that's it. That's a good thing to reach out to us. If you haven't heard from us now, you feel free to reach out. Send us an email at any time. We'll answer it as long as it's in that time frame. So if you submitted at the Toronto show or in June and you haven't heard from us, just shoot us over and we can tell you exactly where your order is at any time, because we do probably have about 150 orders that are still sitting here that haven't been paid from June. And prior to that, I probably have 100 to 150 orders over the last 6 months to 8 months that we are still sitting on here that we've emailed, we've tried to call. We just haven't got a response. So it's funny. Every week it seems like somebody will reach out and be like, I did a submission like 7 months ago and I haven't heard anything. And I'm like, hey, good to hear from you, John. Thanks for reaching out. But we must have your wrong phone number plus your wrong email and no way to get a hold of you. So
yeah. And that's okay. One of those things. That's why it's good to keep the communication line over. The reason I say is it's kind of fun to have a little fun with. But at the end of the day, it was just a communication error. Like what was supposed to be sent was sent. It was just one character off. Like the email was mostly right, but that one missing piece is why I didn't get it. Otherwise, we could have handled it a little bit sooner. Once we did though, got it fixed, and boom, got the cards over, and we were good to go.
Yeah.
So good evening, Yannick. Absolutely. So ES has the first question here. So what's the best way to pack your thicker stock cards? So do you have a recommendation for thicker cards if you're sending over to PSA Canada?
Yep.
Or PSA in general?
Yeah, use a top loader and then just use some painter's tape, fold it over on both ends, and just pinch it together on the top. That's the best way to submit anything that's a thicker card. Yeah. So we're happy to accept that. Don't try to jam your thicker cards into a card saver. I do see that a lot when they're coming in, and it's kind of, sometimes it's okay. It's not going to affect it, but at the end of the day, you want to submit your cards in what you're comfortable shipping them as well. So obviously the preferred way, PSA wants every card to come in that's a regular size card in a card saver. And we do our best to accommodate that. If someone has a special request, a lot of people don't want their cards coming out of one touches and they want to submit them in the one touch, and we do not want to touch your cards. So we'll send them exactly how they submitted them to us. So.
Now, thank you for mentioning that one. I was going to say I don't recommend sending in a one touch only because of the movement thing. It really what it comes down to is that a lot of times in a one touch, the card moves around and you're sending it in for grading. So any additional movement and motion, and like we mentioned before, we're going to put together a little video that'll give some tips on shipping in general. That's something we've discussed and something we'll definitely work on getting out there onto the channel as well at some point here. But really, the golden rule, if you want, is that when you're sending something like the less movement happening, the better. And I can use the example of when I got my cards back from PSA Canada when they shipped it out to me. They sent it out to me by UPS. I got my tracking number and everything great. I actually went over to the UPS store over here. They dropped it off there, showed them my ID. They gave me my stuff. When I open it up, it's inside the box. Inside the box, you got the bubble wrap going around. Now, there's a lot of ways you can do this, but the point is the cards are in the middle of a sandwich of bubble wrap around, and the idea is to minimize the movement. These are already in the slabs, but it still minimizes the movement. Well, when the cards are in a holder, minimize the movement. Make sure they don't bounce around all over the place. The less moving parts are happening inside that box, the better. If it makes it a little bit more solid, I should say. So
Yeah,
hopefully
no,
that helps.
that's a good way to. That's a really good way to put it. You want to minimize the movement of every aspect of how you ship the cards.
Yes.
So,
And that just an open end that right there would be like my tip number one. If you forget about everything else, I don't care how you do it, minimize the amount of movement going on with the cards. You're going to minimize the chance that you add damage because there's always a chance that the card has a little bit of a ding or a corner. You don't want to add to that. Your goal is to get it in the best possible shape already in the holder back to you.
yeah,
So good evening, Josh Livingston. Absolutely. So it said here, if I submit it with Luke, does that mean I submit it through PSA Canada?
yes. So Luke. It depends. If Luke's set up as a show, Luke is doing representing PSA Canada.
Mhm.
So if he'll be in Regina, Saskatchewan doing the show, so if you submit direct to him, that's coming through directly through us at PSA Canada. If you submit it with Luke did the last Vancouver show, so that's directly through PSA Canada. So that all comes through us directly. Anything that you submit to Luke himself still comes directly through us, but that would be through his company as well. So as we keep on expanding, there's lots of moving parts. But like I said, we have preferred group submitters that I'm very, very happy with. And we kind of, as we continue to grow this across the country, then we're going to have more and more things in place to make things more official, I guess you could say. But yeah.
Okay, sounds good. So good evening, Brian North. Absolutely. So Katie's asking for an update. So that's being taken care of. Awesome. Yep. Perfect. So thank you, Ryan. So yeah, feel free, guys, if you want updates, feel free to ask, and then Sherry will be able to look into it and accommodate you. Okay,
Yeah.
so Eric here says, no joke. Oh, we always love when we begin with the preamble here. Okay, so it says here, can you show exactly what is meant by a card saver? So we're talking about the old semi-rigid holders. Do you have any lying around there for you? I've got one behind me in the
Yeah.
cabinet, but
You know what? I've got a nice order. This order came in this week, and there's card savers here. It's a perfect order. It came in between cardboard.
Yep.
When you get an order like this, and this is Gretzky's,
Mm-hmm.
I know this will kind of, when I fan them out a little bit here, you can see this will make Eric. But like, there's a submission that we just had come in, all of Gretzky's. This one's kind of cool. You don't get to see this very often, but
Nice.
4 Howe rookies to go along with it. And then just for Eric, this is what a card saver looks like.
There you go. That'll work. And by the way, to be clear, no specific recommendations as far as brands. There's a lot of different brands that work very well. Really, what it comes down to is does it do the job? I've used the Beckett Shield ones; those have worked for me. I've used the Ultra Pro ones; those have worked for me. I've used BCW; those have worked for me. A lot of times, is what I could get my hands on at the time. If you've got a preferred, as long as the card doesn't shift around in there, and you don't try to ram it into the improper size card into it. My preference is go with one that isn't the bare minimum size you can get away with. And what I'll do is actually what I may do tonight. I think I have the box. If I can find it, I'll show it. But there was one there's one that an Ultra Pro that is about 200 cards. They're all semi-rigids, but they're kind of small. They're basically like the bare minimum you can get away with. I'm not a fan.
Yeah, so those are, you got to be very careful.
Yes.
So if you look at an Ultra Pro has 2 sizes. Those there's actually Ultra Pro makes ones that they're called tall 4 grading.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when they submit. If the smaller ones, like you just mentioned, Carlos, it's almost impossible to get the card in there.
Yes.
So when people have those, you actually got to it's just, they're not good. They should never be used for people submitting cards. There's way too many possibilities of the card getting dinged.
Yeah, I think again in the same vein of a simple golden rule is you shouldn't have to apply effort to get the card in the holder. If you have to apply effort to get the card in the holder, your chances of damaging it in some way go up. That's really as simple as it gets. So real quick here, a couple of more questions for status. Sounds good. Good evening, Bobbles. What's up? Wanted to pop in and hit the like button. Always appreciate that. And yes, it does come out of Eric's pocket as far as the like button. So if you hit the like button, Eric has to pay for it. So for no other reason, you should do that. I think that's good.
So again, not what the brand, but make sure, see on this one, here's the Ultra Pro box.
Yep.
And it clearly says graded card submission. So you make sure that it has that, whether you buy it, whatever company you use, it doesn't make any difference, but make sure they are the big ones. So
yes. You want a little bit of clearance. You want a little bit of clearance around the card so that there's less effort required to put the card in the holder. Just so you're not forcing it in there. Because again, your goal theoretically is to not damage the card. And you can't blame the person on the other end of it if they look at a card that you already damaged and then they're just trying to deal with the consequences.
Yeah.
Stay respectful. It's like he says you're going to pay, Brad. We'll see. But right now, for now, anybody hits the like button, Eric pays. And that's the important thing. So real quick here. The 2020 Retro Precious Metal Gems coming back marked authentic rather than a grade. What's the background here and what's your opinion on the card values authentic rather than say a PSA 8? So any one of them with a number, for most of the genres of the precious metal gems, of course, is going to carry a nice premium, like no doubt. Now, I will say with the precious metal gems, just in what I've seen, some of them, they have these little ranges as far as they have little ranges as far as their cuts. Sometimes it's a little bit of an issue with the cuts. Now, there could be a couple of different issues, but that's one that I've seen. And we'll have to kind of see as far as that's concerned. Do you know? I've seen precious metal gems where it looks like there's a little bit of an issue with an edge, and if there's a little bit of an issue with an edge, it's more likely to come back authentic. But for precious metal gems, is there any specific thing you've heard about that leads to more of those authentics?
No, I think it's just, I think a lot of it has to do with the size of the card as well. Putting them in an authentic holder. I think if a card could be min size, and if you
That's another
request,
issue, yeah.
yeah, and if you request to have a numerical grade, usually on most submissions we put, if the card does not receive a numerical grade, please encapsulate the card as authentic. So that can range in two different ways. If it is a min, and I'm just trying to understand this exactly, if it is a min size, will they still put that card as authentic now when you do that request? And I haven't got an official answer on that, but back to the other part, is it equivalent to a PSA 8? I'd say probably anything an 8 and above with a number on it would be better than authentic. But I think if you're going to have a 5 or 6 or authentic, I don't think it makes any difference at that point. I think the card's the card. You know it's authentic. That would be
I think it's tricky only because the precious metal gems are so prone to chipping that even a 5 or 6 might be okay given, especially if it's one of the higher end players. For some of the higher, like if you say, okay, Jordan PMG, green, PSA 5, that'll probably do very well versus green PMG authentic. They're both out of 10, to be clear.
Yeah.
But if the person who has enough money to play in that particular ballpark is probably going to want the one with the number. They're going to feel just a little bit better about it. They will pay a premium for it. Again, it'll depend on the card. So some of them, it'll be very small. But for a card like that, of that level, probably like Nat Turner will go and cut a nice big old check with a lot of zeros on it if you can offer him one of those. Yeah. So Bobbles says the black boxes are the small ones. You want the Ultra Pro red boxes. That's right. Thank you very much, Bobbles. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Good evening, the Hobby Cop. Absolutely. When you guessing the July orders will be back?
We're already starting to get them now. So there's, again, I wish there was some sort of a system that I knew exactly when they're coming back, but we've been getting July orders back now. And a whole bunch of our orders are through the grading process and now in the QA1, QA2 side. So they should be starting to ship back for us now. Yep. But if you have a request and you're curious and you want to send over, just request to, we can take a look at whatever your sub is. Just let us know. Just give us your name and we can check your order and let you know exactly what it is. So.
Yeah. Some of the stuff is definitely processing. And if any of you do follow, I know some of you do follow GemRate. Check out GemRate on Instagram. They pull a lot of data from the population reports. That's how they accumulate their numbers. But like I think yesterday or the day before, PSA ran through about 90,000 cards in one day. So it's one of those things like they have the capacity to be able to do these big spike numbers. Again, to be clear, that is the information that's coming through the population reports. So if somebody gets batched and they just put a bunch of stuff in the population report all at once, you'll get this big numerical spike. But it still means there's a lot, and that's kind of how it works. So we'll see.
And that will be the thing. I think that you're from economy above. That's where you're going to see an exceptionally fast turnaround because it's going to entice people to submit at that level. If you want to submit at economy, then you're going to get your card back in 30 days or less. I can see that in the future. That's my personal prediction.
Yeah. And the other thing also we're waiting on, and we'll see, because it's one of those things where like, it feels like we're in the last stages now. But again, I want to see when the official announcement comes out, when it's officially like, okay, the backlog is done. All the stuff we're working on now is net new stuff. It's stuff that is out of that entirely. I think for the most part, they've cleared it, but it's like getting those last cards out the door. And that's what we're waiting on to see. Once that's official, then I think it's, it's game on, really, because then it's all net new stuff. So his Hockey 99 says, Brad, Kevin D went from calling himself preferred Pokemon submitter to preferred PSA Canada submitter. Brad promotes the people. That's about the key of being the overlord. Promote people.
No, absolutely. And again, I mentioned many times before, we have our preferred group submitters, and Kevin has done an absolute exceptional job working with me directly. And when I've got questions when it comes to TCG cards, especially Pokemon, I can reach out to him 24/7, and he usually can provide me the answer. Not only is he a bulk submitter, and he has a great clientele. I'm not just pumping him up. I mean this truthfully. He's a collector, and he loves Pokemon cards. We talk about it all the time. And when you're a collector and a bulk submitter, that's kind of the same way that we're in this industry together. And Carlos, we talked about it. We're collectors, and that's what we all are. And that's the people I want to surround myself as we keep building our team. So,
absolutely, I agree with that. So Ultra Pro, so Hockey 99 says Ultra Pro card savers are awful to use. I recommend card savers. I've used card savers to good effect. Ultra Pro feels like a struggle with basic cards inside. Now, an important thing, you might have missed it earlier. We just talked about this. There are different sizes of the Ultra Pro ones. There is the slightly bigger one. The bigger one, you're probably gonna have an easier time with. There is another one that is really small. I would not recommend it. It basically gives you barely enough room to clear the card of normal thickness, card, which means you increase the chances of damaging the card. Not a fan of that. I would recommend picking one of the bigger ones. Like I said, to be honest, it's not a promotional thing, but lately I've made good use out of the Beckett Shield ones. I sent the ones to Brad and PSA Canada, and a lot of those Beckett Shield holders, they work pretty well for me. And they're a little bit bigger, so there's enough room to take the card in and out. And at the end of the day, they're gone. Once you send them off, we're not keeping them. So the truth is, you want the card to be able to be taken out without any issues, and you want to be able to put the card in without you having issues in the first place. And use whatever brand works for you, as long as it meets those criteria. Not everyone's as patient as you are. Absolutely. Brian North says here, I didn't realize PSA graded the thicker cards. So I want to give the answer to this, but I'm also going to give a recommendation. I'm going to put my collector hat on for a second. I'm going to cover this for a second after. But Brad, do you want to answer the question first? What's the maximum thickness for cards that can be graded?
We got back one of those, I'm going to say 360 point, if that's what the size of that cleat. I think it was a John Morant card that came back the other day, and it was, I think it was even bigger than 360 point. It was encapsulated in a bigger case, but they did it. So I think, to answer that, I'm pretty sure any card made from a major manufacturer, they have the ability to slap it. Now, something could obviously slip through the cracks, but I'm pretty sure they can do any card that's out there.
Yeah, that's fair. Now, one quick point I'll make, like I said, I'll just do this real quick. Just from speaking from experience, it is a little bit of a mixed bag. I will make a point to you. If you really want in the holder, then by all means. But if you met me in person at a show and just asked me as a collector, just standing, I would tell you, PSA tends to be a lot more critical of the grades on thicker cards. That has just been kind of their MO. So understand that. Now I got to take advantage of it. He's not the most popular guy in the world, but I've got a little collection of Brett Favre cards. He's not a very popular dude at the moment, but great quarterback in his day. But I was able to purchase a card at a discount because it came in a PSA 6. It was a patch autograph card. Very nice card, but it was a PSA 6. Now, truthfully, there are other third-party graders, possibly with a black outline, that probably would have given it a 7 or an 8 for an equivalent card because they're a little bit less stringent on that. Your mileage may vary, and I've used various third-party graders who have these thicker holders. I like several of them, but it's one of those things. Just understand that thicker cards do tend to get treated a little bit more harshly. That seems to be a consistent thing, though. It's not like a once in a while. It seems to be pretty consistent. Like I said, just understand they're going in, and you'll be happier.
Yep.
So real quick, I'll scroll through here. Brad, I think you mentioned before, maybe Chrome cards have a penny sleeve inside the card saver. Think good or no need. So do you have a preference on that?
Yeah, definitely. I use the term vintage as 89 back. That's always just been me. That's more like with the regular stock cardboard.
Okay.
When I'm putting those in, I don't put them in card sleeves. I think there's another chance that you could ding the corner. Something could happen just because they are the layers of cardboard more so. So they're a little softer if you did catch it. So anything 89 back that doesn't have a chrome finish on it at all, I stick just directly into the card saver. Anything that has a chrome finish or that's a newer card, I stick into a penny sleeve first. And make sure when you have your penny sleeves as well. I know this is kind of basic for a lot of people. Some people do it with their fingers. You see a lot of the breakers do it. Just slice the side. Once you slice the side of your penny sleeve and then you go to put the card in, it avoids that nick coming into place. So then you're good. So make sure
I've seen people do it with their finger, and that's not a bad way to do it. Just if you cut it straight as a clean cut. It gives you a little bit. Basically, what you're doing is you're creating a little bit more room for you to be able to put the card in. It's the same idea as what we talked about the semi-rigid holders. We're trying to create space around the card so you don't have to worry about accidentally jamming a corner or something. And the less opportunities you give yourself to do that, even if you're very careful, the less
Yeah.
chances you give yourself to do that. I think you'll be okay.
And it can be simply if you're just get complacent for a second. If you're doing a lot of cards, you might just catch one. So you might as well just do that. And I use my finger to break the sides for the last 15 years. Something now with Ultra Pro, there's some packs of sleeves that you get that just won't break. So you can try this side with your finger, you try the other side, it just doesn't go. So now to always be safe, if you use a knife, then you're good.
Absolutely. So KD Collectibles here. In 3 years of submitting, I've had one thick card come back as a 10. They always give them 8s. And I'll actually give you guys a YouTube recommendation. I'm sure some of you have heard of them already. Elite Co 3. Check out Elite Co 3 on YouTube. They do a lot of submissions of various third-party graders, PSA included, of course. But check it out. He does submit a lot of thick cards, and you'll see over time. He submitted tons of them over the years. So what you'll see is that, yeah, for whatever reason, they're very, very critical on the thicker card. They will not forgive. Mind you, with the manufacturing process, the chance of you damaging it is more so, but they will really hammer it. I think some of the other third-party graders are a little bit lighter on it, understanding that the manufacturing process, you can totally damage it right out of the factory. Just that way, something gets chipped right off the bat.
Yeah. It's nice to see. We just actually had a big card come back. Kalmakar Cup RPA out of 99 with a PSA 10. Yeah, 1010. I think it was dual service. So 10 on the card, 10 on the auto. So they are in existence.
Yeah, they do exist. That's right. Bobby Burrell, absolutely. Good evening. How would someone go about sending a card that is an unknown version or variation is not yet documented? So this is an appropriate question for Bobby. He does like the more obscure issues. So what happens if it's a more obscure issue? What's been your experience with those?
Absolutely. I think that's a great question, Bobby. And especially someone like you that can do the research in the background on it. So if you go to psacard.com and you can go up to the CRC department and you can put in a request. And we have a couple, I only have a few people, I'd say 3 or 4 guys that do it quite a bit with me. So they'll do a lot of it's European cards. So more or less they do all the research as much as they can. Sometimes I have one gentleman that sends in it could be a 3-page, everything you possibly can think about where these cards came from, plus photos. He does all the research. And I'm going to say that he's batting 1,000 right now. He has every one of them been accepted. So after you go through that process, they'll send you a number, say, yeah, you can submit this card. We will grade this now. So it takes some time. You have to put the work in to do it. But PSA wants to, if they can verify that the cards are authentic and where they came from, then they want to encapsulate them. They want to keep growing that database. So.
Yeah, it's also business. At the end of the day, business is business. If you can encapsulate more things, that's more money potentially in the coffers. So, from Dust to Dollars here, pointing out that thick cards have low risk, sure, but the ones that come back at 10 are big bucks. Absolutely, they do get a premium. Got a big cup card coming back. Yep, absolutely, no doubt. Yeah, so yeah, you will. Like I said, that's why I go back kind of to what we talked about last week. Also, bear in mind why you're doing it. To me, that's a very critical thing. If it's a PC thing, you just want it in the holder and you want a protection and everything, then you're less concerned about the grade. The PMG is also a good example. You just want a numerical grade on some of those, but the likelihood is you're going to get dinged because the things chip like crazy. Just the nature of the design of the card is that you're more likely to get it chipped. But the collectors that really want one are still wanting one. They'll even take the authentic if you absolutely, say, well, this is the only way you're getting it. So they're willing to take an authentic card because they really want the card. But they understand that, some of them are recolored. That could be why it's authentic. That's a possibility. It could be a minimum size thing or an edge looks a little bit too smooth. I'm just giving multiple scenarios that could lead you to this situation. That's how you have to kind of play it. Actually, we talked about it when we did the reveal. I've got the card here. So let me grab it here. The one vintage card that I had in the holder. So I don't know if you guys remember this one. So I showed the card. So this is the 55 Bowman Mantle, and that one is authentic. So there's a couple possibilities, and I have a pretty good idea what I think it is, but it's one of those things where we said our recommendation, and we would love to see it as a suggestion. We would love to see the rationale behind it because it's authentic altered. So there's a couple of different types of alterations you can have. I don't think it's trimming. It's probably like a recoloring or something along those lines. That's my leading hypothesis. But obviously it leaves me to try to figure it out. I knew it had alterations because it had previously been marked this way before. I knew that going in, and I just wanted it as part of my collection. This is part of my set. So I understood that going in. So you just got to know what you're looking for. But again, if you like the card and you want the card, that card has good eye appeal otherwise. So it's one of those things like it's still a very nice card for what it was and what I actually paid for it at the time. I'm happy with it. I'm fine with it. But I also knew I had my expectations set appropriately when I sent it in. If I had this really high expectation or I had bought it for like resale or something, well, an authentic altered in this case is not going to work out for you nearly as well as having a numerical grade. You just got to understand that. But for personal collection, it's fine.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that PSA is working on. Obviously, they see the feedback that comes from collectors. They see the feedback that comes from people like me. I mean, it would make our job a hell of a lot easier if we could explain to the customer exactly why that happened and, put recolored thickness. Now there's reasons behind it and they have their reasons, which I understand. And a lot of them are good. But I think, PSA, as they evolve and the more and more technology they have and the more and more different things, they listen to the feedback from people. So I think this will be, I think you'll be surprised at some of the changes. Not surprised, but I think they are going to make some changes over the course of the coming years, and we'll be happy.
Sounds good. So quickly, we'll touch on a couple of comments here. Let's touch on some of these. So Hockey Hockey says, why do I have to pay so much for a reholder? Why can't they offer an add-in similar warranty, $5 extra for a guaranteed reholder? So I'll touch on a theory of mine that I have for this, because talking about this guarantee idea, how do you establish provenance over whether the person that paid for that guarantee, the warranty, is the same person who has the card now? If the person who sent it in buys the warranty and it's the submitter, but then they go and sell it to somebody who sells it to somebody who sells it to somebody, is the warranty still carried over? It's very similar to PSA does have a guarantee if there's an issue or whatever, but there are some restrictions sometimes on chain of custody. If you've moved it a couple of lines down the line, there is a little bit of a difference. Doesn't mean they can't do it, but it just means that is a factor that they do play into it. So any thoughts on this question?
Yeah, obviously there's the liability factor of that as well. Like as we all do, cracking a card out of a case and putting it in, that has to come into play of it. But if you do want to have, if you have a large group of reholders, which we have some people that, we have one gentleman that's reholding his whole collection. I think it's 4,000 or 5,000 cards, and he's doing it in blocks of 100. Then we are able to be flexible with pricing on that as well. So if there is something done, we're happy to do it. So,
and there's also another factor real quick that I would add to what you're saying. There's also different reasons for a reholder. If it's just like a thing that, I got the old holder and I wanted the newer holder, fair enough. I think that's a reasonable point. But what happens if, it's because it's scuffed up, but it turns out it was you who scuffed it up and then you potentially shook the card? Because sometimes cards in the past, especially the old holders, some of them have a little bit too much room and the card can move around a little bit. And by the way, this happens with all the third-party graders. I've seen it with all of them. You try to reholder it, actually, I can see the card is damaged in the holder. So even though it's got whatever the grade is above, it would not pass muster the second I take it out of that holder. So and I can see it visually from the outside of the slab, which is not a good sign. If you want to try to reholder and you want a guaranteed regrade on that'd be tough.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And anyone that has some cards submitted through us that there is a problem, a defect or whatever, you don't have to go through directly yourself through the CRC. We can do that for you. Just reach out to us and say, look, I got this back. It's got a chip. It's got a ding. It's got a piece of plastic inside of it. It's got a eyelash inside of it. It could be any of those things. Just reach out to us directly and we'll reimburse you for the shipping back to us. It will cost you nothing. We'll ship it. PSA will fix it for us right away. And that's one thing too. Now, CRC cards that are going in are coming back at lightning speed now. Mm-hmm. Obviously, before with the backlog, etc., it was a little more difficult for them. But if there is a problem with the holder, we'll fix it for you, and it's not going to cost you anything. We're happy to do it.
Sounds good. Thank you, Brad. So a question here from Katie Collectibles. Hey, Brad, any plans to utilize Instagram to show off some of the amazing cards that pass to you guys? Now, this is always a fun thing, but this is just my thought from the perspective. I love seeing it, but on the other hand, I always wonder, and this is something that I think about. I always wonder, did you have permission to do that? Because the person who's submitting to you may be wanting to do so anonymously. It may be a situation where, yeah, I'm doing business with you. I'm giving you these cards, potentially these amazing cards. Do I want you plastering my card for everybody to see? Especially if you showcase the card after it got graded, I can see your serial number. Now, maybe you cover it or whatever the case may be, but what if the population is 1 in that grade? Well, we can kind of figure it out. It's not like we have to look that hard the next time we see it.
So that is a good question. Obviously, I'd love to do that. I'd love to just have a video of all the cards passing through because it's it's probably my favorite part of this job is looking at the cards that come through the door. So if you notice when I do things, obviously Carlos, we did a reveal with his cards. Jeff Jones, my buddy, he wanted us to show some cards, and I showed the card because I know it's okay to do that. The ones I just showed you, I showed you there's a handful. We probably got 20 or 30 Gretzky's in this pile, and I just flashed them. Like there's no identifying the cards. So again, that's just a privacy thing. So we will not get into that. It's not up to us to reveal other people's grades. There's lots of guys that want to do their own YouTube shows. They want to have these reveals. We're not in the place to do that. I know that we did send in, we had 4 Makars out of 99. So it's not revealing who it was. 4 different people submitted those cards in the last month. So yeah, so I can say that stuff, and there's no way of pinpointing on it. But if anyone wanted to say, hey, yeah, you can reveal my cards, we'd be happy to do it. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's one of those things that's always a little bit tricky because everybody has curiosity. Instagram is a great medium to share and to show off a lot of cards. I enjoy doing it. I know a lot of people who do as well. But it's one of those things, you kind of have to leave it in the owner's hands to make that call. The owner should always be knowing what the situation is because it's only fair. It's their cards at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So real quick, let me get Ryan's question here, and I'll move over to Hobby Cops as well. Does the new bulk rate, so the new one, include sheriff coins?
No, it doesn't. Yeah, that's it. I know that Brian, I still have some here of yours. It doesn't at this time.
Yeah.
So
What does it fall under? Is it a different category?
Yeah, like you click the box on it, and it comes under the coin holders. So yeah,
Right.
I'm not sure if it does under it was only economy. I'd have to check now to see if it is available for value, or you can go on psacard.com and just start a submission, click on it, and you'll be able to see the level it comes up. So the names are pretty good now. You have your bulk value, economy, regular, express, super express, walkthrough. So they're kind of meaning that. I think that's nice to have. It's not, July special. That just kind of confused things. So now I think you're going to see that defined role: bulk, value, economy plus. So
Absolutely. Now just scanning through here. By the way, I'm looking forward to, because my suspicion has been that the current bulk rate will at some point be supplanted by a sub $20 rate. That is my belief. Not an edict from PSA themselves, but just my belief. So I would love it to just be like, so what do you do with below bulk? It's like unleaded, regular. It's like you just come up with another word. It's like just sub bulk plus. I don't know. I'd be curious. Like I said, I believe there will be a sub $20 offering available. Where that lands, I don't know, but it's just my belief that will exist. And then I believe the other levels will get adjusted accordingly, and then the declared values will also get adjusted accordingly. So it's good news, and I'll touch on again in a minute here, where we'll have a little discussion, a little roundtable discussion for us, and we can talk about that a little bit here in the grading piece as well.
Yeah,
so
because I do think if you have the bulk, I think bulk. Again, just my personal opinion on it, you'll see the price of bulk move. So when they're ready, if they need to get more cards in the door to keep things moving, the price of bulk will just lower. One thing I do want to add is I get this question all the time. Once we submit cards to PSA, they're locked in at that rate, and we can't change. We've had lots of people. We announced the bulk rate this week officially. And a lot of people say, oh, I submitted my cards at value. Can I switch those over? No. If I have your cards here before I submit them, I'll happily switch them over to that level. And then I talked to one gentleman today, and he was like, well, I don't really like. I said, well, I can tell you in fairness, PSA just graded about 12 million cards at a rate that they could have got quadruple the revenue on if they didn't. So when you submit your cards, it goes both ways. When you submit them at 15, if they raise the price, once they're submitted, you're getting your cards graded for that price. They just did 12 million cards at 10, 12, $14 a card, $8 a card. Some of them were in there for in the backlog US. So it works. It works both ways. So
yeah, absolutely. Fair enough. This question I'm not sure about, Hockey 99. Could you be a little bit more specific and clarify? Like I read it, but I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to on this.
I think I know what he means too. Okay. So when we come back, we open up the boxes, we check. The cards don't necessarily come back all in order. There's many times if we have a 100 card order, they're out of order, and I don't understand really why that is. So in order for us to check everyone's orders, we open up, verify the contents before we ship it. So
okay, sounds good. Coins only have economy and higher. Perfect. Thank you from Dust to Dollars. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's touch on this one briefly here. What are your thoughts on people submitting junk wax with high hopes in 2022? Do you talk them out of it? Every person in their 40s thinks their rookie Lindros from their childhood is awesome. So that kind of goes back to last week's discussion about is it worth it, and at what point is it worth it? And so I'll give my 2 cents real quick, and then all you, Brad.
Yeah.
Basically, it's a math problem. Now, mind you, if it's for personal collection, you just want to have it encapsulated, then by all means, as long as they understand what they're getting into. Really, it's not talking them out of it. It's about saying, hey, like, just so you understand, the likelihood is this card will probably grade about this, give or take. On a good day, it'll grade this. On a bad day, it'll grade around this. So as long as you understand that, if you're comfortable with that, and this is the price, and you're cool with that, great. We'll take them all. But if you think that's a little high, maybe you need to wait a little while. Maybe the price can come down a little bit and make it more sensible for you, or maybe just put it in one touch and enjoy it. Your mileage may vary. Now, if you're submitting with high hopes, in the hopes that it will increase value to the point that you'll make mucho dollars, then maybe it's not so much talking out of it, going like, are you sure the math checks out on this one? Let's quickly run through the numbers and see where you wind up on this. So you tell me, this is your best case scenario. If everything goes perfectly, do you still want to do it?
Absolutely. You summed it up perfectly.
Yeah. So it's just there's a little bit of common sense that goes a long way, but a lot of folks get very excited about the premise, and I would never discourage anybody. My belief is you should do whatever you want to do that makes sense to you, as long as you're going into it with your eyes open and you understand what you're getting into. If you're wrong, you're wrong.
Yeah.
As a collector for as long as I've been, I have made mistakes. Not a lot of them, and I generally don't make the same mistake twice. I'm pretty good about that. But I've definitely made them. But that means I got to learn. So the likelihood of me making the same mistake again, much lower. Well, then great. I learned my lesson. I didn't make that mistake again. I'm not going to sit there and complain about it and whine about it. It's like, no, all right, I learned the lesson. It cost me some money. We'll move on. We'll do it again later. We'll do it better.
And that's part of us. Like when we have someone that's a first-time submitter, which we have a tremendous amount of first-time submitters lately, that's for sure. The first thing I want to do is ask the reason why they want to have their cards graded. Once you get that answer, and then you can go forward with them. Well, I want to sell them. Okay, perfect. Well, now we can talk about which cards are worthwhile for you to send and which aren't, because we want them to be happy at the end result. So,
Absolutely, I agree. Question from the Hobby Cop: when do we need to get our cards in for September? I think you guys are submitting now. Is it weekly?
Weekly, yeah.
Yeah. So you got a little bit of latitude there, the Hobby Cop. So you can theoretically you could get your cards in now. You could get your cards in a week or so. You still got a shot at being in September.
Yeah.
So just bear that in mind. It's a weekly thing going on for them.
And the other thing too is once the cards are completed at PSA and they're in the shipping department, they ship back. So like we're getting orders from June, July, August, September. Tomorrow we have another order coming in that is from the end of August, our express orders. They are express orders from the end of August and above orders. We're going to be back with us from the time they left here till the time we get them back will be right around 16 days, which is excellent. I mean, considering the whole process to get them there and get them back. So that's pretty impressive. That's why we changed the estimated turnaround date, because we know at these service levels, they're going to be hitting these targets a lot better.
Oh, sounds good. So there's a question on Len's role right now at this point. So does Len take any submissions at this stage?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so we still Len's all the incoming packages we can either get sent to the UPS store address or they get sent to Len's house. And he's a key part of the operations for us on that end. That's for sure. We love having him. Like I said, we talk every day, and he brings invaluable experience to us. And sometimes it's nice to brainstorm about different ideas, and lots of things have changed, obviously, in the past. In the last 2 years, it's a completely different space than it was for the prior 20. That's for sure.
I agree.
So he's still a key part of it. He does our pickups and drop-offs, and he's a great part of our team.
Perfect. So this one's a good local flavor question here. What's the best way to drop off cards if you're local in Halifax? What's the approach?
So this is something I'm working right now with Ryan Miller at PSA Canada, at PSA in Santa Ana. He's head of international expansion. So we're working on a lot of different things, but we have an official drop-off spot now at AMG Collectibles in the Bedford Place Mall. All the new signage, everything else that we have will be in the next couple of weeks. So it will be kind of like a kiosk style drop-off center that's going to be pretty high end, and it's going to look really cool. So people are We have people every day that are coming in to drop off cards there. So you can do that. You can drop them off to Len. You can call me and you can meet up with me directly to drop them off as well. I think last week we had our record. We had 6 people that flew in to pick up cards.
Okay.
So they didn't want their cards shipped back. So they hopped on a plane. They got a $250 rate from Montreal and Ontario and flew in. And Sherry did it last week for us, drove out to the airport, met them at the airport. They went through and they went right back through customs with their cards and away they went. So that works easy. So that's
All right. Seems fair. Seems fair. I like it. Sounds good. So let me grab a question here. By the way, I am seeing some new names, and thank you all for joining us. Appreciate it. Also appreciate the questions. This has actually been really good. I've still got a topic in my back pocket just in case, but I appreciate the questions. So either way, we're good. I'll read this one, and then one other thing. Since there are so many new of you, just understand the earlier commenter, Sanderson Door, I personally invoice him for every time somebody hits the like button. And he's loaded. Frankly, he should pay. So I would appreciate if those of you, especially those of you who are new, would hit the like button. It is free for you, but I am charging him. So take advantage of that. So Hobby Cop, have you ever looked into a system that notifies the submitter that you received the card and sent it off? Or is that too much work? So what's the thoughts on this kind of a system?
Yeah, so I'm going to say a year ago, we have PSAcard.com. It was going to be through PSA. So we're integrating that now. I think by 2023, we'll have that whole thing. So you'll be able to track your order just like the same way through us, just like you submit it to PSA in the US yourself, which will be a huge help for us. So we've also in the interim, Carlos, we've talked about it with Sherry, with Luke, with Kevin. We're going to have a system in place just through Google Docs that's going to have a submission number. We're just trying to figure out the best privacy way to do it now. Obviously, we don't want to put out there whose names are on what submissions and who's submitting this and that. That's something we don't want to do.
Yep.
So we do have I'm pretty sure in the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to have all your orders on a Google Docs that you'll be able to just click in, and we're going to update it, say, every 3 or 4 days, maybe even daily. Who knows? We might even do it every day, just so you can see the 8 different stages where your cards could be. So we try to as well. Every time a package arrived, we send an email letting everyone know that they did receive their package. And I still want to do that. I think that's very important, and we will get back to that. To tell you the truth, it just kind of got overwhelmed with the amount of packages we were getting in. And we knew a lot of people it didn't make a difference to. So some stuff we do a little extra for, and it creates a lot of work. Same as when we're shipping out. Carlos, we just did it with you. So we don't want to confuse people, but we want to make sure we get your cards back as fast and safely as possible. So when we drop off an order now, we send you an invoice when your cards arrive. You pay for it. We take it up to UPS. UPS packages it, takes our boxes, packages it again. They send you an email from UPS directly with the tracking number. Then we send a release email as well. So it's kind of some guys like, man, you sent me 2 emails today. Well, it's all part of the process. We want to make sure you are home, you are aware, you have the tracking number, and the address is correct. So it's a key thing for us. It's an extra step. It creates more work for us. So that's something. Also, we never ship on we used to not ship on Fridays. But now, based upon the feedback that we're getting from people, we are going to ship on Fridays. So you should still get it on Monday, but it's going to travel over the weekend. So that is something that we're going to start doing going forward. So it created confusion on our part. People would get the tracking number, they say it released, and then it wouldn't update till Monday. So it all works.
One of those things. It also builds up a big backlog of packages, because if you don't ship it out on Friday, then whatever's there on Friday carries over, and then you still have to ship it out on Monday, and suddenly you've got also the stuff you're going to ship out on Monday. So it creates a double whammy on Monday. Yeah,
and that's it. I mean, you think about it as well. I think how many orders PSA must have sitting there right now as well, because I know I'm going to guess 350 orders that are sitting here waiting to ship, that we're just waiting for payment for the people to reach out. So,
absolutely. So thank you for the question, the Hobby Cop. Appreciate it. So basically, just to give a little summary there, there is an interim solution being discussed. I kind of pitched the idea to the guys, and at the end of the day, it's on them to decide if it makes sense. I just threw it out as a suggestion. So hopefully maybe that creates an interim solution for now. Ideally, in the perfect world, it's leveraging PSA's data, because they've got the data. So it's one of those things. As long as you can look up the appropriate order number, the information is available there, and they can give it to us. But it's just making sure there is a simple way for you to get that information so that you have access to it. Again, while keeping your privacy intact. You don't want to give away your personal information to anybody, really, or leave it out in the open where anybody can see it. And those are the key elements that we want to avoid. So Bank here, good evening. If I had an order with 2 express cards and 1 regular card that I submitted at the Card Expo, when should I expect to get them back?
Yeah, so this was, again, something that we learned from this. We take so many cards from different levels. So express orders were all back about a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
So anyone that reached out to us, and again, I'm not saying we did this the right way, but we didn't really think it through per se.
Mm-hmm.
So if you reached out to us, what we did is we just invoiced you for your express orders with a shipping charge. We shipped it to you, and then when your regular order comes in, we'll ship the regular order back with no shipping charge at all, if we will do that. So otherwise, a lot of people just waited. It didn't matter. So we just waited. Once we got your regular card, we shipped it back. But if you want to send a status, Bink, I should say, if you wanted to send that over to Sherry, she can give you an update right now. We can get your cards out ASAP. Because if you had 2 express cards and 1 regular card, they're all back now. We're just waiting on economy. Unless it is a crossover. So
sounds good. Thank you for the question, Bink.
Yeah.
Eric here is happy. Like I said, anybody who hits the like button, I do invoice him personally for it. And I'm thinking about raising the rate, to be perfectly honest. Again, it is free for the viewers, but for him, I may start charging him double. This man should pay. It's important. Nova Grower, good evening. You in the shop tomorrow? Valid question.
Yes, I am. Yeah, I'll be there from like 10 till noon for sure, maybe a little longer.
Nice. It's good. It's good that the people are looking out for you, Brad. People are looking out. So ES here. Is it cheaper to submit through PSA Canada than send in directly myself? I love this question. Because it is the value proposition question, really, right? So why don't we do this? We talked about it a little bit here and there. We've done it a couple different times, but let's lay out the lay of the land. If I was going to submit myself, what do I need to do? So I need to join the Collectors Club because I've got to have that access. And I think that's what, 99 US per year? Now, I don't think they give, do they still give the free submissions part of it, or is it just straight up? And then you do get the magazine, which looks pretty cool, actually. The magazine looks pretty solid. But you have to basically pay 99 US right up front. So before you even send in the first card, that's a $99 charge. Now, after that, then you do your submissions. You do have access to the various rates they have. Now, the bulk rate that they have currently is $22 US for a $199 declared value maximum. The rest of them move accordingly. When we show the PSA Canada price, it is already in Canadian dollars. So that's the first thing. You have to factor in the exchange between the 2 currencies. That's the first item you have to bear in mind. Plus your $99 off the top. Secondly, so now in subsequent orders, then obviously the 99 might not be an issue anymore. But for the first order, consider that extra $100 you have to pay it. So then you submit the cards in. So you ship it down to California. Now, again, that's U.S. shipping. If you're going to do an insurance or whatever, keep in mind the cost is part of that. Next. So you pay for that. Now, they receive their stuff, they take care of it for you, they send it back. Now, you're going to have to pay the shipping, and you're going to have to pay customs and duties. And a lot of that will depend on how expensive it is. Like, the more expensive it is, the more customs and duty you're going to pay. And also, so when PSA sends it back, and you're a normal customer, what method of transmission do they send? Like, do they send it one of the couriers? FedEx?
Yeah.
Okay, so I do have a lot of experience with receiving FedEx. So you'll get a phone call that says, this is the declared value of your package, pay us or you're not getting your stuff. They're a lot more polite than that, but that's effectively what it is. So then you pay them, so they will release your stuff into your custody, hopefully the same day that you pay it. Maybe. Depends. So again, I speak from experience. I get a lot of FedEx stuff here. So you do all that, you pay that cost, so you're going to have to pay that duty, which generally is a fee that FedEx has, plus depending on your province. Just bear that in mind. So add it all up, that is the first answer to your question. The second answer to your question is a little bit more streamlined. So Brad, PSA Canada. I go with option B. I don't have to pay the 99. What else do I have to know?
Yeah, so everything from economy and above, you pay the same rate. Obviously now for bulk services, we're paying the exact same rate as you would be if you were submitting them yourself. So we have a little bit of a markup on those. One thing that I want to emphasize on that is that the biggest thing is seeing how many people are nervous shipping across the border and back. Mm-hmm. When we ship your cards, you are fully insured from us to PSA and back to us for the declared value that you submit the cards at. So that in itself is worth, I mean, it's almost impossible even to get insurance on collectibles to ship them to the US yourself. So you can request insured shipping on the way back from PSA. That's where you get in the problem with customs duties. Technically, you should not have to pay anything. They're your cards. You're paying for a service there, and they're coming back to you. Mm-hmm. But as we all know that have shipped things across the border, that's just not how it works. So it can become a bit of a headache. So that's one of the big things. The other thing, a reason submitting directly through us as well, is we combine, as the question was earlier, we combine all the different options for you under one shipping charge. So if you wanted to, I just did an order for a guy and he had 6 different levels. So he would have paid, so we're going to charge, they're all going to come back at different times. We're going to ship them back to him all at once. He's going to pay $65 shipping. If he submitted directly, it was say it was 5 card bulk, 2 cards at economy, 2 had dual economy, 1 had express, 1 had express dual. So it would have been 6 shipping charges at $50 US, $300. So those cards coming back from him would be $300 US.
Plus duty.
Plus the potential of duty. Absolutely. And there's lots of times packages come through and you don't get caught on it, but you're just playing, it's a gamble. So when you combine all those things into play, we actually, if you look at everything, we would be cheaper to submit through us than to submit directly yourself. So
I would say the consolidated shipping is probably one of the biggest that I would say is a major numerical factor. Just throwing it out there. That's why I wanted to give you, again, just being honest, I wanted to give you a lot of the factors. You have to remember, when you're submitting yourself, you have to pay that Collectors Club membership to begin. That's number one. That's a built-in cost. You have to pay that off the top. After that, everything else goes in from there. Just understand that, and you can proceed from that point going forward. Next here. What does creating the submission list on the PSA Canada PSA website do for the customer? Do you take the barcode and transfer to PSA Canada account?
Yeah, so that's absolutely. So we prefer that, and that's how it. If you can go on and do your order at psacard.com, and you can fill out. So you wouldn't be, if you're not a Collectors Club member, you don't have access to the bulk or the value rates. So you can just do it at economy, and you can handwrite on the sheet says, just submit as bulk, or you can submit as value, whatever you want to do. Just write it by hand onto the sheet. So from our end, it's much easier to get that, because all I do is when that order comes in, we transfer that over. We have the ability just to take your customer number and the submission number, and we transfer that over to our account, and then we can submit it directly. Okay. So when you send in, we get a box of 200 cards. Lots of people send it in to us with no paperwork. Yeah. They don't want to do any of the work, and that's fine. That's part of our service as well, if that's the way you go.
Now, if they do that, just out of curiosity, if they do that and they at least do the basic to build them in the submission, so does that number become available for you to check your own status, or is that built in, or is that under the PSA Canada account specifically?
Yeah, it still gets switched over.
I just wanted to double check that.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, because you know how many people submit cards and they say, I put my order and it's gone, it disappeared. Yeah. Because after 30 days, that order will disappear on PSA's system.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
that's why I wanted to make sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good. That's a great point.
I want to make sure we're clarifying there. Good evening, Josh. Just trying to catch up. In a card saver and submitting, we still use the penny sleeve. So I'll summarize Brad's take on it. For chromium cards, he believes the answer is yes. So do I. For cards of older card stock, basically anything from the early 90s, because Topps still used that same cardboard in 1990 and 91, still at the very tail end of that era. So the old cardboard stock that you were used to for vintage and into the early 90s. He likes to just put it into the semi-rigid without. I will put in the penny sleeve, but as long as you're careful, you'll probably be okay. So what I would say is, as long as you're careful, you can put penny sleeves on whatever, and you should be fine. If you've got the older stock in it that's a little bit softer, you might want to be a little bit careful. Chromium cards tend to be pretty durable in this regard, as long as you're not being crazy and trying to do something nuts. Otherwise, I think you'll be okay. So real quick here, I like the Hobby Cop's question here. Now the backlog is clearing up, and a lot of cards that should not have been graded are coming out. What are your thoughts on the term junk slab era? I love this one. It makes me so happy. Tell you what, do you want to take a stab at it first, or do you want me to?
You know what? I'll let you go first, because I feel like we both have the same thoughts on this.
Yes. So Hobby Cop, great question. I love the question. I love these broader topics anyway. But my take on it is very simple. The junk slab era, I don't have an issue with the term, because it could very well be an accurate way of describing it. However, and this is the analogy I use, you talk about the junk card era, you're looking at the overproduction era of the 80s into the early 90s. Remember something. All those cards were mass produced. No doubt, no question. There's still, some of it still may be printed to this day. I might have cases of 1991 Donruss that I think I've thrown out and they're haunting me. I'm just saying, it's very possible. But the point is that as a collector, I don't care. And the reason I say that is because as a collector, quality still has value. quality that has some scarcity still has value, even in that overproduction era, which went into the early 90s. The same era that gave us 1991 Donruss, which you can buy by the pound, also gave you things like Donruss Elite. The Donruss Elite card still holds some value. Not super crazy value, but still a little bit of value, even though it was in the same series. And the other example I'll give you, 1993, Topps Finest. First year of Finest, those refractors still hold some value. Technically, they're in the junk, era, the junk card era, the junk wax era. So what's the difference? The difference is they were more popular. The difference is they were produced in a little bit lesser quantity, not necessarily like one of ones or whatever. It's still a decent amount of cards out there, but people want them. If the demand is still there and the production isn't super crazy, there's still value. So as far as the junk slab era, absolutely. There are a bunch of cards that probably should have never been graded in the first place. So here's the good news. If you don't want them, don't worry about them. If you are interested in something, there's a good chance that quality cards are still being graded at the same time as well. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it was exactly how I would have put it as well.
So we try to give a little bit, like, we're just being honest. I agree. And there are definitely cards that should never have been graded. And I wouldn't pay 1 cent over what I consider reasonable for those cards. Just the same as if they had been raw.
It's funny, but I pick up a lot of cards. I remember buying slabs back in 2002 at the National in Cleveland. Remember, for $5, and I thought it was great. $5 a card. I still have a lot of those cards that I bought then. There's some that if you like a card, I like I think it's 94 Select, Ken Griffey Jr. blowing the bubble. He's got the big bubble there. I got Olaf Kolzak eating the hot dog.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Great cards. So those cards, technically those cards are worth nothing. Mm-hmm. But when I see a cool card in a slab for $5, I'm in. You know what I mean? So.
But the point is, you understood what you're getting into. You understood what you're buying. You got entertainment out of it. Great. I'm on board. As long as you understand what you're buying and it makes you happy and you get a kick out of it, then it's $5 well spent. But you're not expecting to get value out of your $5. You're not expecting, oh man, I'm going to spend this $5 and I'm going to flip it for 10. That isn't the expectation. The expectation is I'll pay $5 for something that will entertain me. I'll get some amusement and I'll add it to my collection. I'll have fun. That's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's perfectly fine. So real quick, Katie Collectible said, I had a customer that wanted to submit directly for the value tier, 200 cards. He said it took him 7 hours to submit. By the time he was done shipping, it was already over what we charge. And that's not including potential duties and return shipping, and the package had a 9-day customs hold, which was terrifying. So actually, one other thing I'll point out is that when you are submitting with somebody like PSA Canada, you do have an advocate on your side. So if there is some kind of an issue, at least you've got somebody who can also speak on your behalf to talk with PSA and try to get to the bottom of issues, questions, whatever's going on with the order. So that's another possibility to help you out. So from dust to dollars. Also with submitting through PSA Canada, there's no minimum cards to submit, which is very true.
Yeah.
And then Ben Fink Jensen also wanted updates. So I think Sherry's taking care of that. I think we're good. Perfect. Darren Smith, good evening. Yep, an update email. Perfect. Moving on here. So when in July my printer broke and I didn't have sheets, I hand wrote everything, not the best. I tried to make it look fancy though. That's fine. That's fine. At least you put in the effort. So we appreciate that.
So if you were going to do your submission, all I need is just your customer number and the submission number. That's all I need. So you don't have to send the sheets. And I learned that early on with Kevin. Kevin would send in an order and there would be, an actual full box of paper because he submitted so many cards.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So here, Hockey 99. Brad, as your processes and tools improve, any chance you could ever release data by province and city? So data for submissions. Is that something you would ever look at putting together?
Yeah, you know what? As I work with Ryan Miller at PSA right now, that's something like he's asked me all these questions, because they're trying to understand the Canadian market even better. Mm-hmm. And I can't give that to him. So yeah, that is something that's definitely would come into play. It's a little harder because I'd have to reach out to we have a tremendous amount of group submitters or bulk submitters that submit through us. Mm-hmm. We also have a lot of customers that just submit for friends and they put their orders together and they combine on shipping from different areas. So it's tough to say. For us, obviously, Ontario East would be the biggest amount of cards. We have Luke that looks after the Western Canada, and he's a huge submitter for us, and he gets a ton of cards from Alberta, and now he's even laying the groundwork doing the shows in Vancouver. So we're going to go out, and I'll be with Luke for November, right after the Toronto Expo. The following weekend is Dale's show, the Boss's show. So myself, Sherry, Luke will all be there. We're going to do at least twice a year, but Luke's probably going to do, I think it's monthly or bi-monthly, so he'll be there for those as well.
Absolutely. Eric here says, I agree with you take entirely except for pro set. There's no value or want for those things. I will never argue against pro set slander. Just as a personal issue, I will never argue against the slander of pro set. 1990 Yager stats liner PSA is very low pop, yes, but that's also because they didn't submit a lot of them. Now, mind you, a lot of those pro set ones do have easily chippable edges and corners, so bear that in mind. That does make it tougher. Yep, moving on here quickly. All right, so Hockey here is obsessed with this $1 billion lottery. So let me take my stab at it, Brad, and then you can add in your bid. So, Brad, if you win the $1 billion lottery, after you give, Sherry money, me, everyone involved in PSA Canada, and then ignore Hockey 99's cards, what else happens? Who gives the customers their cards back?
Still be me.
Okay. I like it. This would be like the situation. I always used to have this joke at work where they would be like, well, what happens if you won the lottery? I'd still come to work. Why? Well, I wouldn't be worried about you guys getting mad at me. I'd be very chill, but I'd still come to work. Like, as long as I'm enjoying what I'm doing, then the whole point of making a lot of money is that you do what you want to do. What if I actually like the thing I'm doing? Then, okay, that's fine. Then we're good.
Yeah. We were at an event last night, and it's funny when I tell this story, and I can answer this one truly. I would be doing the exact same thing that I am doing today if I won $1 billion in the lottery.
I also want to know where this $1 billion lottery is. I've seen some pretty high Powerball ones. $1 billion's pretty good. Billion with a B? That's pretty solid.
Yeah.
Okay, so FYI, I'm looking for 1990 score Bo Jackson PSA 10 if anyone has one. I'm sure there's a couple out there, no doubt. Yep, no doubt. This one I'm not sure. $40 in staples for printing. I think it's related to one of the previous comments. Which one was it?
That was me saying Kevin's every time he'd send an order, there'd be a stack of papers.
Gotcha. All right, sounds good. By the way, lively chat with a lot of great questions. So thank you for that this evening. That's what we've been hoping for. We've been hoping that we'll build up to a point where we can have a nice discussion about a couple of things. So let's touch on one more topic here, and then we'll wind her down on this one. I wanted to at least touch on this a little bit just to give everybody a little background and insight. We talked about, again, the reasons why you would want to grade and making sure you understand why, because that's going to make sure that you understand when it would make more sense to you to do it and not doing it. So I think that's very good at the end of the day. But at the same time, what I would like to think about here is when somebody is doing it, one of the things that a lot of them are doing is they're maybe taking an overly ambitious view of their own grading. They'll do their own little pre-grades and they'll think, and the thing is, there are published standards. So it's one of those things where maybe some thoughts from you on people who are trying to skirt the line. Like, I always like to be conservative, meaning if I'm pretty sure it's a 10, I have to make sure I'm still comfortable with it if it comes back a 9. So I do the math. I do that value proposition thing. So for me, I will look at it thoroughly, and if I'm comfortable that I think it's a 10, well, that's good. But if it's a bit of a borderline situation, I almost have to downgrade it in my mind and go, okay, so if it's a 9, most likely, but maybe it would get an 8, because if it's borderline 10, it could very easily come down 1 or 2 levels. And if that's the case, am I still comfortable? Is the answer yes? A lot of people tend to be looking at the most flowery version of this. It's like, well, maybe if they miss that nick on the back, that scratch over there, this. So you see the flaws, but you think, they won't notice those. It's a little bit too very optimistic. Let's put it that way.
And I think a lot of things too. People send. I'm not sure if we talked about it on this show or if it was over on your show. I don't spend a lot of time on centering based upon, I never used a centering tool in my life.
Sure.
I don't think you have to. I think you can tell with your eye if the centering is off. I don't think centering tools are really going to help you. You can tell a card, if a card's 60-40, you can tell, you should be able to tell fairly easily for that. But there's a lot of guys out there that are extremely good, and I see it now. I just had a 50 card order from a guy that there was 40, he might be 47 10s on Young Guns, 47 of 50. But he takes his time. Out of those, I bet you those 50 cards, he might have looked at 300 to send. And he picked those 50 out of it, the best ones. So like guys are getting really good. With the cost of grading, you have to be good. I have a guy here in Halifax now, a friend of mine that got back into the hobby, and I pay him. I give him a stack of cards and I pay him per card, and he looks them over for me, and I get a nice little detailed checklist back that says yes, maybe, or no. And that's for all modern cards at the end, and he preps them and he puts them in the holders. And that's why, again, a lot of bulk submitters that are out there will do that for you. So they'll look at your cards. You're going to pay. At the end of the day, is it better to pay them $3 or $4 to look at your card, an expert, or for you just to take a chance and spend $40, $50 to grade it? So if you're not sure and you're getting into it, let someone else help you and teach you on that. So
Absolutely. But that's the reason why, like, my one piece of advice always is that you should try to understand what the standard is. It's better to argue if you disagree. It's better to argue if you do understand what the standard is, and it is written. Again, maybe they didn't follow the standard. In which case, at least you got to leg the stand on. If you know what the standard is, you can start there. But my point always is, if the centering's bad, you're probably not going to get away with it. Now, is it possible you could? Sure, but centering is the one that you can most quickly identify. You don't have to spend hours staring at it, but you can figure it out pretty quickly more often than not. If you know it's way off, you're begging for, like, well, maybe if they don't really pay attention, it's like, hang on there, hang on there.
yeah.
But anyway, that's fine. So real quick here, Josh says, did we hit 100 subscribers yet? We did, and thank you all for contributing to that. All right, so real quick, I'll touch on hockey. And by the way, one of the next questions, I apologize, I missed the previous question. I wanted to come back to it, but Nova Grower kind of leads me back into that question, so we'll touch on it. You guys missed out. No, we didn't. I understood where you were getting with it. I just kind of wanted to have a little fun with it. The positive version being, so Brad, you're hit by a truck. Sherry's hit by a truck. Maybe Len's hit by a truck. The dog's hit by a truck. None of the kids are around. All right, who's sending the cards?
Yeah. So I think as we build our team, so Luke, we could have Luke step in, Kevin could step in, and
there's a couple of people. There is a succession plan.
And
I didn't want to spend too much time on it, but there are other people that can chip the cards.
And to give it very cool, like everything's done on a spreadsheet. Like it's not complicated. It's very simple. The orders are all listed there from an internal standpoint. We can find exactly where your card is at all time. So it's kind of even at times when someone says, oh, or a package isn't there, or I'll get a phone call in the middle of the afternoon and be like, yeah, it's Tom. Where do you know where my cards are at? I'm like, no, I don't have a clue. And I could just feel the panic that they set in. Like, no, I have a clue. I just don't know. I'm driving right now. I'm sorry, I can't answer your question. Once I get back to the office, I can tell you exactly where your card is. So, yeah.
It's like, I don't know if you've ever seen the TV show Soul Survivor. You've got one member of PSA Canada. So basically, Soul Survivor is a TV show. I think it was Kiefer Sutherland in it. And basically, the idea was whenever Congress in the U.S. has their thing, there's always somebody that's designated to be basically effectively a bunker in case something happens. They become president. So there is like a mechanism in place where if the worst comes to pass, this person's now in charge because they're the only other one left. So they made sure there's always somebody. So Brad and they have one member that gets hidden into a bunker, and they are in charge of PSA Canada if worst comes to worst. If nuclear holocaust hits us, they will send out your packages. Yeah. You may not get them, but they will be sent out.
Carlos takes full ownership of every card.
Probably, yes. That's the succession plan. So real quick, Brad the billionaire running the Fanatical AMG. Yes.
Can you imagine?
Okay, so Nova Grower, this is the question that leads in. My apologies. We did have a previous question on this, and I wanted to come back to it, so this will be my lead-in to get back there. Fanatics cuts deals with printers, so that's kind of the rumor out there. Panini can't produce cards. Fanatics buys Panini. Fanatics cuts deals with printer. UD can't produce cards. Fanatics buys UD. So the question previously was, what do you think about Fanatics buying everything? All kinds of stuff. So that's a lot of integration in the hobby, a lot of things going underneath. And honestly, my first thought is, guys, I'll give you a really good rate on my YouTube channel. If I've offered, the standing offer remains there. Now, I'm not going to go cheap, but I will. But I will for the right deal. I will sell out so hard. Like, I can't explain how hard I'll sell out. But that said, any thoughts though on the understanding is that potentially they may have gotten their hands on a printer, which, by the way, from a business perspective, that's exactly what I would have done. Now we're getting to Machiavellian work here. That's exactly what you do. You buy the printer because that is a pinch point for all the manufacturers. That is a serious issue that they would have to contend with, because all of a sudden, if you can't get your cards printed, not every printer can print trading cards. Not every printer can do chromium cards, refractor style cards. That's a specialized set of equipment and personnel and all. You buy them, you control that segment of the industry.
Yeah. I like reading the little cycle there, because it's who knows exactly what's coming into play, but I think most things are done and in place now, and I think it's whether, again, my personal opinion, they're just going to cross the T's and dot the I's, and I think over the course of the next 2 or 3 weeks, things will settle into place for the future of it. And every person that I know that works at Upper Deck or is part of Upper Deck, that Upper Deck is not, and I believe this, I have no reason not to be. Upper Deck is not for sale. It's not going anywhere. They're going to do their own thing. Their relationship with the NHL is as strong as ever, and I think Upper Deck will continue to produce the cards and memorabilia that they've been producing for years. So
Yeah, I think also, to be fair, I think it's also a unique situation because when I think it's Richard McWilliam,
yeah,
passed away, it created the scenario where the family is still in charge of it, but it's not as simple as, oh yeah, can we buy you? It's not really as straightforward as that. It's kind of like, no, there's a couple of hoops you'd have to cross in order for that to be really under consideration. It's not just a matter of cutting a big check. There's a lot of discussion that you'd have to even broach that subject realistically and get them to really listen to you. And it's one of those things they do have a strong relationship with the NHL, to your point. So it's maybe one of those things, as long as they feel like they're comfortable, they could keep rolling along and continue producing product. And they have the exclusive with LeBron and Michael Jordan. So they can produce LeBron and Michael Jordan autographs and nobody else can.
oh, you forgot somebody.
Oh, to still get Tiger, yes, they
Thank
got
you.
Tiger. You got
Thank
it. But those exclusive contracts have tremendous value. That's
Yeah.
big value right there. That's three big names that they can produce autograph cards that nobody else can do. They can have a Tiger, LeBron, Jordan trio triple autograph. Nobody else can do that.
Yeah.
They can if they feel like it.
Well, look at the product that released this week. Not to get off topic about it, but the new metal. I mean, it's got LeBron, Jordan autographs in there, and it's driving the price on that like crazy. So
Yeah, because they're the only ones that can do it, and that has huge value. Those contracts alone have huge value in and of themselves, no doubt. Have you seen the Mr. Minty product? I have not. He has a spray to clean cards. Any recommendations of things at Walmart to clean cards? So my recommendation is if you put a substance on the card, 9. My recommendation. I think most people in the hobby are very comfortable with the idea of using like a cloth, basically similar to what you would use for glasses and different things, to wipe fingerprints off the card, debris off the card, whatever. No one really has an issue with that. That's well within like accepted standards, and even some companies offer to do similar things to that, to take debris off the card. Adding a chemical of any kind, I don't care how friendly they say it is to the cardboard or to the chromium or whatever the case may be. We don't know what the long-term consequences are. I'll put it to you this way: nobody knows with 100% certainty why a certain era of refractors greens. It's a chemical reaction of some kind. It might be humidity. It might be a variety of other things. It is a chemical reaction that we can't control. Now imagine adding a foreign substance. It might be okay right now, but we don't know in 5 or 10 years. Does the chemical break something down on the cardboard and mess with it down the road, and then you've got a new issue? And by the way, it's already in the holder, assuming you get away with it. And all of a sudden, that card has an issue, and down the road you find out, it's like, oh, you put a product on it. I would be very wary of adding anything to that card. Wiping some dirt off or something, or nobody has an issue with that.
yeah, I agree. And what I always go back to, my personal choice has always been the old school pantyhose. I know there's microfiber glass, but I use them forever to take the gum, or wax off of cards, which is what I've used. So that's what I still always recommend to use if you're just going to give the card a wipe to make sure there's nothing on it. So
yeah, like I said, the only thing I would caution against is chemicals, sprays of any kind. Like, they're your cards. I'm not saying to say you do you, but don't be shocked if someone catches it, if they find out there's a chemical on there. That's an altered card, theoretically. So it's a bit of a very gray area, super gray area. I would recommend staying away from it. But again, wiping fingerprints off the card or whatever, that's pretty much accepted in the industry. Most people are completely okay with that. So appreciate that, Hockey. Peace and love. Thank you for that. Yep, only 2 printers in the U.S. Not good for the hobby as a whole. One owner is never good. That's fair. It's one of those things, though, that realistically, the hobby left itself open to it. And this would be I don't disagree with you, but this would be my only pushback. When Topps put itself in that position to lose its MLB license, that was a long-term mistake. Fanatics could offer a lot of things, absolutely. But if Topps' relationship with MLB was so strong and so good, remember, and the NHL re-upped their commitment with Upper Deck even after Fanatics offered this amazing deal to to Major League Baseball, to NFL, to the NBA. So even though they had great deals that they had put together on the table, the NHL decided to re-up with Upper Deck because they were happy with how Upper Deck was doing. Upper Deck had carefully cultivated that relationship over years and years and years, to the point that they were willing to trust Upper Deck to keep going forward. So if Major League Baseball, Topps is an institution with Major League Baseball, with baseball cards, going back 70 years. But at the same time, if that relationship was taken for granted, And I feel like Topps really took a lot of things for granted for a very long time and didn't really strengthen themselves. It allowed Fanatics to waltz right in. And Panini is a relatively newer player in the game for North American sports cards. The sticker business has been going on a long time for them. But North American sports cards, they're a relatively new player in the game. They don't have the relationships necessarily to really be able to boast like, oh yeah, we have the strong relationship. Not necessarily. They might get along and they're good with you as long as you're paying, the rights fees. But then somebody else can come in and offer more money. Fanatics did, so they just took it. And the printers don't have any loyalty to card manufacturers. Our job is to produce this product. We don't care who does it. If you want to buy us out, sure.
Yeah.
It's just business. So again, to your point, monopolies are generally not good. I agree, but it's the way that this industry has set itself up at, and we're just being honest about that. Valid points. Okay, so real quick, question about the July special. Absolutely. So feel free, Jeremy. Thank you for asking. Okay, so last thought I'm going to say, just real quick, and we'll wind her down on this. I was saying, I do recommend folks to, if you are going to submit stuff, try to at least take a little bit of time to look at those published standards. It will help you. You won't get away with centering too often. That's usually the toughest one to kind of get away with. Little specs and things. Maybe you'll get away with it, maybe you don't. But what I would do is I would be very conservative in my grading. I would really be careful. If you see the flaw, if you can see the flaw with your naked eye, assume someone else can see the flaw. Like, go off of that idea and then work from there. And then your expectations will be appropriate. And then you can make a decision on whether it's still worth sending in or not. Because if you need this to be a 10 to be profitable, and you see enough flaws where you think, well, like, if I was grading it, I'd call it a 9. Well, you've got the answer to your question. If you need a 10 to be profitable, maybe you need to reconsider that one. Again, the goal isn't here just to turn away business, but like, why ask for business when we know you're going to be unhappy? Why set you up for failure ahead of time? It's like, no, this is borderline at best. Can you live with a 9? If you can live with a 9, then okay. But if you can't, maybe not.
Yeah, no, that's it. And take the advice that other people give you. You don't have to accept it. You can go, at the end of the day, it's your decision. Mm-hmm. But there's so many times that people ask for advice and then they choose not to take it. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the frustrating parts of it, because I know what's going to happen. But at the end of the day, everyone makes their own decision. So
sounds good. So what I'll do is I'll give a minute there. I don't know if you saw Jeremy's question there, Sherry. I'm giving you a minute just in case you want to reply to him back before I turn off the stream. So I'll give you a minute to do that. Otherwise, I want to thank you all for the questions, for the comments, for the engagement tonight. It's been really good. We've actually had a bunch of you here throughout the evening, so it's been appreciated. We are doing these now regularly every Thursday. We're doing it at 9 p.m. Eastern time, and the idea here is to get a chance to chat with you a little bit, give it a little bit of education. If there's something that you want to know about, if you check this out on replay, and there's a question, a burning question that you need the answer to and want an understanding on, throw it in the comments section. Because if you throw it in the comments section, we're going to see it. And if we see it and it's worth we're going to bring it up on the following show. So if it's a worthwhile topic, happy to talk about it. So it's one of those things, the more you tell us what you'd like to hear about, it's easier for us then to create the kind of programming that'll be useful to you, if that makes sense. Cool?
Yeah.
All right. So I don't know. I'm giving Sherry another moment here just in case if she wants to respond to Jeremy's question there about that. Otherwise, then we'll wind her down here. So thank you very much. Appreciate that, Nova. Appreciate you popping in. Appreciate you, Josh. Absolutely. Like I said, we'll be back next Thursday. There we go. Perfect. So I want to make sure Sherry got the response in there. So we will be back, like I said, next Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern time. So that'll be good. And then, like I said, when we do these live shows, you can ask for status updates. Do it as early as you can, of course. I wanted to make sure we had enough time so Jeremy got a response. But otherwise, in this case, we try to provide that to you, and folks are checking and watching and are able to give you some status updates. Anyway, so that's it for tonight. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back on the next episode. Have yourselves a good one, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone.